Pastor Karen here with a Thoughtful Thursday. So last week I decided that we would spend the Thursdays leading up to Easter talking about the last words of Jesus from the cross. And so, and we talked a little bit about how in order to find all of those last words, we have to look in all of the Gospels. So just like the Christmas story, in order to tell the story that we might say out loud about Easter and Holy Week and the time leading up to that, we would need to use all four of the Gospels to kind of take pieces from each in order to create the whole story. So today we're still in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 23, and we're going to be looking at Jesus's words when he says, "I tell you the truth," or "Truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise." Those are the words of Jesus. And so it's really so important, I think, in this setting to not just kind of take the words of Jesus out of context. I think it's really important for us to back up a little bit, which is good Bible study, right? To read the scripture that comes before, especially, and after this kind of verse that we're struggling with today, because although there feels like hope, when we back up, it takes on a different meaning, right? So if we back all the way up to verse 39, so Luke 23, verse 39, it says this: "One of the criminals who hung there hurled insults at him. 'Aren't you the Christ? Save yourself and us.' But the other criminal rebuked him. 'Don't you fear God,' he said, 'since you are under the same sentence? We are punished justly, for we are getting what our deeds deserve. But this man has done nothing wrong.' And then he said, 'Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom.' And Jesus says, 'Truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise.'" This is the picture where we get the three crosses, right? So often, especially this time of year, we see pictures of three crosses, and this is how we know from this story that Jesus was in the center, and there was a criminal on his left and a criminal on his right. There likely maybe were even other people nearby who were also being crucified, because crucifixion was certainly a more common punishment in those times. So this is that picture that we get of the three crosses. So there's Jesus hanging on the cross, dying, and there's the first criminal who says, essentially, "Jesus, like, dude, aren't you God? Like, aren't you the one that came to save us? Like, can't you even save yourself? And while you're at it, why don't you save us?" And so often I think we read those words and we think, dude, like, don't say that. Like, you can't say that about Jesus. And we kind of give that criminal the bad name, right? Like, he's the bad one. He's the one that said what you shouldn't say. And then the other one says, to the other criminal, he says, "Don't you even understand that we're all being punished? Like, we're all getting the same punishment, but you and I, we deserve it. But Jesus, he hasn't done anything wrong." And we want to like yell and cheer and for that criminal and say, "Yeah, we're so glad you understand, like, you get who Jesus is," right? But as I reflected on this scripture this week and thought about what that meant, I could think of, unfortunately, many times where maybe I was the first criminal. Maybe I was the one who's saying, "Come on, Jesus, like, if can't just make this right, or can't you just make my family member well, or can't you just make COVID go away? Can't you just make it all happen? We know that you're that powerful." And certainly I'm not mocking, right? We hear in some translations that this criminal was mocking Jesus. I don't certainly mean to mock Jesus, but I certainly can understand a little bit about maybe what that man was thinking, right? Like, Jesus, come on, like, make this happen for me, like, use your power. And then, of course, I imagine that there's always times when we're the other criminal, where we look at Jesus on the cross and we think, oh my goodness, this is not right. Like, I'm the one who sinned, right? Even today in 2021, Jesus is on the cross 2,000 years ago, and he is looking at us today. And are we saying, wow, Jesus didn't deserve this? We did. But Jesus took this punishment away from us. Jesus took this pain, takes this pain away. So that was kind of my first thought. And so I think that as I see that image of the 3 crosses throughout the season of Lent, I'm sure that I'm going to be reminded of this scripture, and I'm going to wonder where my focus is. Is my focus on the criminal, and my mindset on the criminal that says, Jesus, use your power, like, save us, prove to me that you can do this, is my mindset going to be on the other criminal who says, wow, this is Jesus. He's done no wrong and he's doing this for me. And then asks Jesus really into his heart, right? Asks Jesus, remember me when you go into your kingdom. Bring me with you. Like, I want to go where you're going. Can I also be that criminal as well and have that mindset? And of course, both looking at Jesus at the same time and having that be the focus of the season. But then we have Jesus's words, right? The whole thing we were going to talk about today. And Jesus says, truly, I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise. Imagine that a lot of people have a lot of trouble with this passage. Because if we think that, here's this guy who, certainly did something wrong, and this is his punishment, and he's being crucified next to Jesus, and he just says, maybe he never talked about Jesus or thought about having faith in Jesus or believed Jesus was the Messiah until right at that moment. I imagine some of us think like, yeah, a little bit too late, right? Like, I'm just going to be honest with you, right? Like, sometimes we say right at the very end, he professes his faith and he says, this is the Son of God. And yet Jesus still says, you're welcome in paradise with me. And so what about all of those of us who have spent our whole lives, right, trying to follow Jesus? But this is what I love about this scripture. It's not about what we did. It's not about how long we've been doing it. It's not about the years of service that we've been a Christian, or how many committees or leadership roles we've had in our church, or how many good deeds we've done. It's really just Jesus's words. It's Jesus's words who says, truly I tell you, which means listen up, because I got something important to say. Truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise. Jesus gets to decide that, right? Jesus says, come on in. It reminds me of the parable that Jesus tells about the laborers in the vineyard, right? Another hard one, where the master, the landowner says, I need some servants. I need some people to pick the grapes in my vineyard. So he hires a bunch of people, and he realizes by about noon that there's not enough. So he hires a few more people, and it's like 4:00 in the afternoon, and he still needs more help because he needs to get these grapes in. And so he hires another group of people. And when it comes time to pay them at 5:00, everybody gets the same. The folks who worked for an hour, the folks who worked for 5 hours, the folks who worked for 8 hours, all get the same amount of money in the end. So it's not a competition, my friends. I think Jesus's words remind us from the cross. He reminds us of the truth and the grace that comes from salvation, that it only is a gift from God, right? We can't earn it. We can't. All we can do is say, Jesus, you are the Messiah. Jesus, you are the Messiah. I hope that I am in your kingdom. Remember me when you go into your kingdom. And then Jesus opens his heart and opens his arms and says, truly, I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise. And I think we could all this week probably benefit from inserting our name into that sentence, right? He doesn't name the criminal. We don't know what the man's name was. But we know that while Jesus was on that cross, he not only saw the folks who were in front of him, the mockers and the mourners, he not only spoke to the people who were on his right and his left, but he saw us and he speaks to us. So he could be saying, Karen, truly I tell you, today you'll be with me in paradise. And that's a promise of hope that I'm going to hang on to this week. So I hope that that brings you a blessing. I hope that you see the 3 crosses in a new way. And I hope that you would take some time this week to read Luke chapter 23, verses 39 to 43, and meditate on what that means to you, the words of the criminals and the words of Jesus. Have a great week, my friends.